Hi, everyone. It's Lauren McGoodwin, founder and CEO of Career Contessa. Welcome to today's webinar. Happy Wednesday. It's May 6th. I hope you all had a great Cinco de Mayo. If you celebrated and did anything, definitely different this year than probably what we're all used to. I tried to make a skinny margarita last night. I think it was okay. Not as good as the professionals, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining and spending your Wednesday, at least morning my time. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's 9 a.m. And I love that you all are already sharing with us where you're joining us from. If this is your very first Career Contessa webinar, welcome. Just kind of giving you the lay of the land. We normally start using the live chat right away, and people love to share where they're joining us from. The live chat is also, you guys know it's always been a really incredible, useful, engaged place on the webinars. But I feel like since coronavirus, it's kind of taken it up a notch. So I'm really excited to see that you guys are interacting with each other and sharing each other's contact information. And hopefully you guys are getting some good connections from these webinars. I know that there's an overwhelming amount of digital events happening right now. And so just want you to know, I really appreciate you guys coming to a Career Contessa webinar. And today we're talking about how to become your own career coach. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, so earlier this week, you guys, I've had an exciting week. I actually announced the pre-order of my book. I actually got the first hardcovers, which is like really cool, earlier this week. So that was really, really, really special. We'll talk about that on the webinar. Don't worry. But yeah, it's been an exciting week. Obviously, we're all in a stage where we're trying not to panic, but to pivot, and that includes myself as well with my my business and my career. And so I was kind of thinking about topics for a webinar that I wanted to teach that could be really applicable. And I think, regardless of whether you need a business coach or a career coach, I think this, hopefully this webinar is going to be really helpful to you. So the other thing is, I don't normally do this, but I put some polls right down here. So I asked 2 questions. If you guys can fill out the poll, that will be helpful just to kind of get an idea of like where the Career Contessa community is falling into all this stuff. For example, I asked, what's your employment status right now? 87% are saying that they're currently employed. I love seeing it like move as you guys do it. It's really cool. And then I said, you're most interested in, and about 20% of you have said finding a new job, 7% advancing your current role, and about 70% personal development, kind of figuring out what you want to do next. So that means I'll kind of try to make sure I tailor the presentation based on this more like personal development angle. And also, that's fantastic that 80% of you are currently employed and that you weren't laid off because of COVID. That's awesome. If you were laid off because of COVID, please make sure that you are keeping up with all the other resources that we have on Career Contessa. Our website is really the foundational place that you want to start. But we've been rolling out bonus podcast episodes, articles, newsletters, videos, everything we can to support you right now. As you guys know, we've made all of our webinar replays free. So just if you've been laid off, don't forget we have that. And also we are creating podcast episodes, videos, articles, and everything like that on how to also remain successful in your current role. So we've got stuff for everybody. You were furloughed and then brought back to my company with the PPP loan. Yeah. And that's a whole other thing, is how long are we people who are on being brought back because of those PPP loans? Are they going to be furloughed again in July? So yeah, we've got an endless amount of things we can talk about, but I do want to focus today on you guys and your personal development. So I talked about the poll. The live chat is super, super active if this is your first webinar. And then I know we always somehow run out of a little bit of time for questions. So right underneath me is this part where it says ask a question. That's why I got on early today, so I could kind of do the intro stuff first. And then I'm going to do my best to leave a lot of time up for questions. So, you guys know that I'm not a career coach on Career Contessa right now, just because, I was writing a book and some other things. But I do a lot of career coaching, and this is like, a great opportunity to not only get my perspective, but get the community's perspective. So we're all really good about doing that. Okay, last item is that I did make a presentation. I wanted to make this as helpful as possible for you guys. So I've made a presentation. I'm going to pull it up on screen and kind of minimize me in the bottom. And then just so I have an easy way to kind of keep looking at the chat, monitoring that and the presentation, I'm going to leave it in the like Adobe view. So I'm sorry, it's not as pretty as I would like it to be, but you guys, I'm sure won't mind as long as the content is great. Amazing. You guys are so on top of it, telling us where you're joining us from and everything. Okay, so how to become your own career coach. If you own your business, you could also think of this as how to become your own business coach. It's all very applicable. So I just want to give you guys a quick background on myself because we have had a lot of new people join our webinars recently and sign up. So I just wanted to start with sort of a general overview. Here's kind of my timeline of Career Contessa. So as I already mentioned, my name is Lauren McGoodwin. I'm the founder and CEO of Career Contessa, and I've got some career highlights over here, but I launched Career Contessa in 2013 as a side project. It was my master's thesis project. I was writing my thesis on millennial women and career resources, and I fell into this kind of like a loophole, and I got some grant money to create the very first Career Contessa website. And while I was creating that and writing my master's thesis, I was working full-time as a recruiter at Hulu. And before I had gotten that job at Hulu, I had been working as an administrative assistant. So I've shared this story a lot, but I totally understand tough career transitions. I totally understand graduating in a recession. I totally understand having no idea what you want to do, even though you quote unquote checked all the right boxes. So I totally understand that. Since about late 2014, almost 2015, I've been working on Career Contessa full time. And I've been busy since that time. And thanks to all of you who have supported us throughout the years, we have slowly kind of ramped up all of our offerings, including the Salary Project. That's our anonymous salary database. We have online courses. We have a curated jobs board, our webinars. The webinars are actually one of the things we started with, which is kind of amazing. And then, of course, most recently, our podcast, The Females. I highly encourage you guys to listen to that. We're actually kind of making some changes to that as well, where we're trying to make the episodes about 15 minutes long. So hopefully that will be even better for that like quick career dose that you can get on a regular basis. And then, of course, like I just mentioned, my book, Power Moves, How Women Can Pivot, Reboot, and Build a Career of Purpose, launched for pre-order this week. So that's just kind of a rundown. I know it's a lot, a rundown of who I am and kind of my background. So this is really a time to just like remind you guys, let's be totally present for the next 60 minutes. I know that when you're working from home and trying to do anything else, it's like multitask, but to really get the most out of this presentation and to like, as I said in that poll, how many of you are joining because you, this is for your own personal development, do this for you. So put your phones away, close out of browsers and other tabs, take out a notepad and just really get ready to learn. I'm going to run through a lot of information here. The other thing, just, I don't want to frighten anybody with the notepad thing, but you will get access to this replay, and in the replay you'll be able to see the presentation. So it's not like you can't you can't see the notes ever again. But okay, awesome. Moving on. Okay, so you're in the right place today if you're job searching. So I know some of you said that about 20% of you said that you are job searching. You are absolutely in the right place if you feel lost or stuck in your career. What I think is really interesting is that most of the time that we feel lost and stuck in our career, it's because we're at some sort of pivotal moment or kind of like quote unquote crossroads, either because of the stage in our life or because maybe you've hit some sort of plateau at work, right? So pivots happen because, or the desire to pivot or want to reboot your career is because maybe you've gotten really good at your current job and you're no longer challenged, right? It can also be positive things. It doesn't always have to be negative stuff like coronavirus, although that might be the one today. You're in the right place if you want to be more in control of your career moves, right? There are plenty of us who, and I know as a recruiter, I saw this all the time where people kind of just fall into a job type or a job function or, a department kind of type area. And they're not bad at it. They're not great at it. They don't hate it, but they don't love it. It's a huge kind of like big pool of indifference. And so they kind of just keep going with it. So they're not really in control of their career moves. They're not proactive about their career moves. They're really reactive. Or sorry, they're reactive. So they're just sort of like reacting once something happens to them or not. So the whole goal is that you're in the right place. If you don't want to be like that anymore, if you want to be more the person who's like, look, I want to make moves with intention. I want to make moves in my career because they align with where I want to go and who I am today. So hopefully all of you relate to that. You're in the right place if you want to develop tools to reboot your career on your own. That means that when you feel like you're coming up against a challenge in your career, or you feel like, hey, I kind of feel like I'm getting to one of those transitional places or those pivotal moments in life, that you want to not feel like it always means that you have to rely on someone else or something else. You want to be able to rely on yourself. That doesn't mean that you're not going to look for input from other people. And we're going to talk about that, but just, being able to kind of process this on your own. And you're in the right place if you're ready to try something new. I know that might seem a little strange right now because in the coronavirus, it's like, do you get the opportunity to try something new? Has that opportunity been taken away from us because of uncertainty? The thing about it is that, yes, if you're ready to try something new, even if it's during this time of the coronavirus, you can still set yourself up for success. You can still set yourself up for that next move. I find it really interesting that we've never, ever, ever, ever had a time like this ever in our life. Certainly, we wish it was a little different, but this is an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity to take a step back while the world is sort of paused, and think, do I like what I'm doing? Do I want to keep doing it? Have I ever thought about what it is that I want for my career? And look, what you want and what you have to have and what you have to do, I understand. These are not, one is like an extremely privileged point of view. And I don't mean it like literally only do what you want. I mean, just kind of taking a step back and think about, is it time to start something new? Where am I, like, where do I fall on the scale of these decisions, and why have I made the decisions I've made and why haven't I, etc. So it's kind of like a time for reflection in a way that we've never had before. So just, want to preface that for the try something new. Okay. And then of course, stay tuned till the end because I've got a special offer related to power moves. You guys probably already knew that, but we'll talk about that at the end as well. I also have a call to action on this webinar that takes you to the Power Moves website. So just FYI, hopefully you're not skipping ahead though, because like I said, we want to stay really focused. Okay, so let's review some facts. Let's talk about, since this is all about becoming a career coach, let's first talk about what a coach is not. Coaches are not there to micromanage you. I don't know about you guys, but most people would also say that they don't like a micromanager, except when they want someone to tell them what to do with their career sometimes. So, but a micromanager isn't a coach is not a micromanager. A coach is also not a crystal ball. We have a career coaching platform on Career Contessa, and I actually see this kind of a lot because I can see all the responses come through, and people will say, I just want someone to tell me what to do with my career. I'm not sure what to do. I need your help telling me what to do. A really good coach, someone who's truly a coach, there's no part of them that is a crystal ball. I know it's tough. A coach is not going to tell you what to do, as I just mentioned. And they're not here for an intervention, right? That's a coach is none of those things. So I always think it's easier sometimes to start with what something isn't than what it is. But now let's have a little quick reality check about those facts that I just gave. There is no such thing as a dream job. And that's actually a really, really good thing, because no one can tell you what career move to make next either. And the goal is to have a growth mindset. And yes, you can change your mindset. There's decades of research that prove that. And a growth mindset leads to increased motivation and achievement. And one of the reasons why the dream job doesn't exist, you guys, and if you came to the webinar that we had with Dr. Sasha Heinz, and we were talking about goal setting, one of the things she was talking about is like, you want to be optimistic about the future, but you also want to be pessimistic about it, meaning like you want to be able to see the challenges and prepare for those. So one of the things that's really interesting about a dream job, and I talk a lot about this in my book, and there's a lot of research from Stanford and a lot of other places, is that focusing on a dream job is having a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset that we're talking about. But also most of the time when people imagine their dream job, they don't actually imagine or consider all the negative things. Like, for example, when you think about your dream job, you're like, oh, I'm going to have this boss who's like super engaged and gives me feedback all the time, and we're going to have a great relationship. But the reality is that we're humans, and maybe you don't have a great boss, or maybe you don't get along with that person perfectly. And you have to imagine, okay, how am I going to deal with a hellish commute, and not right now, but a hellish commute and a bad boss. Like, so you want to be kind of going back to what Dr. Sasha said, like you want to be optimistic yet pessimistic. And the myth of the dream job doesn't include any of that pessimism that you need in order to get through those challenges. So this is a really important takeaway here. So let's review some facts. A coach is someone who focuses on setting goals and your overall growth. A coach is relationship based. Again, they're not to-do or task list based, like a micromanager. Oh, this is a typo. I'm sorry, you guys. Going to tell you what to do. I noticed that right before the presentation. So I just want to let you know I have a typo. I'm sorry. And then a coach is someone who teaches you how to think strategically, define, and clarify your vision, right? So again, they're not going to tell you what your vision is. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to give you exercises that are hopefully going to help you think strategically, define, and clarify your vision. Here's the reality check about that. Today's workplaces offer little in the way of career management and development, especially for non-executives. This is something that, unfortunately, I think over time has become just less and less of a priority. I remember when I was a recruiter, one of the things that I always found really challenging was that, there were a lot of resources that were available for us to hire people, but there weren't a lot of resources available for us to retain people and develop them. So it was sort of like when they thought their career was up, they were out of here. I'd love to know in the live chat, you guys, how many of you have talent development opportunities that are provided / paid for by your company? Let us know in the live chat. The other reality check here is that a typical Google search for a career coach results in about 30 million plus results. So that is really challenging because how do you know which career coach is good, which career coaches are not great, et cetera, et cetera. So I find that it sometimes the idea of looking for a career coach can be challenging. It's not impossible, obviously. And there are a lot of really good career coaches out there. But what I have found is that at the end of the day, the best career coach and the person that, the buck stops with sort of thing, and the person you really want to be investing in is yourself, because the best career coach is you. Because no one is more invested in your career success than you. That will always be the case. Again, I believe that there are amazing career coaches out there, but no one is more invested in your career than you. So, that's an important reality check for us to think about. So here's what we're going to cover on today's workshop. I mean, this is definitely more workshop-y than what we normally do on a webinar. Hopefully you guys appreciate this workshop style. So we're going to cover one of the most important truths I can share around career development. We're going to go over 6 ways you can become your own career coach. And you guys know my style is very actionable. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I really don't like it when people just kind of like throw these big ideas out there. Like, I like tangible steps. So I've given you ideas for every single one. Well, I'm just reading your guys' responses. I never spoke or met my formal mentor. Always have to teach ourselves. We have options for professional development, but not necessarily coaching and or talent development. We have regular development meetings and goals set every 3 months. That's amazing. Other than that, general PD opportunities are our lynda.com account, and that's it. 0 career development strategies. Yeah. So oftentimes, just to kind of like pull it back, oftentimes if you do have career development opportunities, it's very self-directed, right? So, okay. And then the last thing, sorry, I got a little distracted reading the chat. The other thing we're going to cover is what's a power move and how they can help you. You guys know that I'm creating my own little language and branding around power moves and what these are. And so we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so the most important truth is number 1. So one of the most important considerations in taking charge of your own career coaching is to think objectively about your work, experiences, and the feedback that you receive. So without the structure of this, a formal coach checking in on your progress, you will need to create some designated techniques that help you be introspective about your objectives and in self-coaching. So one of the things about coaches that are so great is that you do have this person who is checking in on you, right? There's maybe like a structure, like every 2 weeks, we're going to check in or we're going to do this. Same with business coaching. They probably have some game plan or some structure. So one of the most important things is that you're going to have to create your own structure so that you can constantly be checking in with yourself and thinking objectively. So the benefits of self-awareness at work. So this is what I'm talking about. If you can set aside time to think objectively about your work and experience, that is you're creating more self-awareness at work. Here's what research has found, that the benefits include managing your stress and time better. And the research also shows that you can process emotions quicker and healthier. That sounds pretty good, right? The other thing that they found is that it leads to increased confidence and it builds your resilience muscles. Those are all the things we want. You guys, we talk about this stuff all the time. How can we do this? How can we do this? And one of them, and also this is a habit of extremely successful people, is that they are creating, how to get started. They are creating rituals or routines where they check in with themselves every single day or week. They've got their schedule. They observe their patterns. So they're taking time for that self-reflection or even self-compassion time each day. The other way that you can get started with thinking more objectively and designing your own structure is to ask for feedback. And the next one is keep a work journal. I'm going to go into that one a little bit more later on in this workshop, but these are all amazing tools that you can use to create the most important truth, which is creating more self-awareness. So I'd love to know how many of you have a daily ritual or routine where you are self-reflecting or even having that self-compassion time each day or each week where you're checking in with yourselves. Let me know. And this is another thing is I want to mention that there's no right or wrong way of doing these things. It's about the consistency of doing it, right? So let's say for 1 week, it's kind of like exercise, right? Let's say 1 week you're really good about your morning ritual, and your morning ritual includes while you're making your coffee, you are thinking back and checking in with yourself, observing your patterns, etc. Yeah, like a morning meditation, all good things. Let's say you are doing those things every morning for 3 weeks and then you fall off the wagon and for 2 weeks you don't do it. It's okay. You can get back on. There's no rules about, once you're off for 3 days, you don't get to do it again. I read an article about keeping a tracker of tasks, and it's helped a lot since I can add personal notes to it. People do it at night. I try to write morning pages as often as I can. My routine. Yeah. And you guys, we just had a podcast episode about rituals. And it's something I have just learned is, and one of the things I learned when I did the podcast is that there's actually a big difference between routines and rituals. And rituals is really creating the experience around doing it. So the example on the podcast was, we interviewed this guy, he's an author, Mason Curry. And he talked about how he would put his hood up whenever it was time to write for his book. And something about that ritual made it so his mindset was oh yeah, we're going to get to work. We're going to get to work. Yeah. The ritual podcast was really cool. I'm really, really into this. And we've actually wrote this amazing article on it. I can find it for you guys as well about really the restorative power and the power of harnessing rituals to actually get where you want in your work. Let me just find it. Yeah. I'm going to put this in the live chat for you guys too. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So, and then the other thing is asking for feedback. So, there are a lot of people who think they take feedback well and they don't. So this is something that you need to be really observant of your pattern. Do you ask for feedback? What's your response? How do you take that feedback? What do you do after it? So for example, someone in my life got tough feedback once and I said, okay, how does that make you feel? She was really angry. She felt like that was unfair that they gave her that feedback. But at the same time, after a few days, she was like, look, there were some parts of that feedback that I did need to hear and I do need to change these things. And one of the things I said to her is I said, okay, now that you know that, how are you sharing that with the other person? How are you keeping yourself accountable to those things? So that's another thing is like, I feel like people will ask for feedback. Either they don't ask for feedback or they'll ask for it. Here's something that maybe they're defensive or don't like about, maybe a few days later come to the conclusion, like not all of that was bad. And that's it. We never like see any growth that comes from that. So that's another thing to help you get started with this important truth of you want to be able to bring more self-awareness to really work and life. But that self-awareness, again, is going to help you manage your stress and your time. It's going to help you manage emotions quicker and healthier. You'll feel more confident. And also what I have found, the reason why I call this the most important truth is because you're going to feel like you're much more in control of your emotions versus your emotions controlling you. So that's extremely powerful. Okay, number 2 is play to your strengths. So did you guys know that, again, I researched all this stuff, that people who use their strengths at work are 6 times more likely to be engaged on the job? That's a lot, like a lot. And that, and here's kind of the sad news is that right now, research shows that only about 3% of people create goals based on their unique skills, i.e. their strengths. So that means that you're 6 times more likely to be engaged when you're using them, but the majority of people are not doing that. And that means that you really want to think about creating goals based on strengths means that you'll experience more engagement, more opportunities, and more career fulfillment. And that's really, really kind of the goal here right now is people want to think about how can I be in the driver's seat of making sure that I do get to reap these benefits of engagement, opportunities, and career fulfillment. And it's, well, you need to first identify your strengths, and then you need to make sure that they are weaved in as much as possible into the work that you are doing. Now, sometimes it's true, you have a boss and they're going to tell you to work on something that is just not your strength, but it has to get done. So I'm by no means saying that you only get to do your strengths all the time. But what I am saying is that this is an incredible tool to know and talk again, going back to self-awareness, like it's an important way to be aware of maybe when it comes to volunteering for a project or how you do something or how you communicate that you understand what this is. The other thing I'm going to put here in the live chat is we actually had a webinar about this like before the coronavirus, and it include Career Contessa coaches and even some recruiters on there. So if you're really interested in this, in the study of strengths, there's amazing tools like Strengths Finder, via Stand Out More. I find Stand Out more valuable. So there's a ton of tools like this. I found it a little overwhelming sometimes to have all those reports. I think they're helpful, but I kind of was able to kind of narrow it down. This is what worked for me, at least, because I really wanted to be able to identify my strengths. I had to ask myself, what am I good at that's required for my job, right? Being a master at gardening is awesome, but it doesn't do me any good for my job, right? So like, what are you good at that's required for your job? So take some time to self-reflect on that. Where have you had success at work so far? What have others told you you're good at, right? So think back, and this is why that self-reflection is so great. It's like, where have you been able to find that you've been able, I don't know, you've gotten compliments or people have asked you to do more things. And like, what are you the expert on at work, right? What do people go to you for? The other thing is, what gives you energy at work? Where do you feel the most energized, right? Where do you enjoy spending your time? I'm not saying that you'll get to do that 24/7. What I'm saying is that thinking of like trying to identify your strengths, those assessments are awesome. And I don't think you can do kind of enough work on this stuff. And I think it is a continuous work in progress. But for me, I think being able to answer 2 questions, and also for those of you who are job searching or who are thinking about your own personal development, this might be stuff that you want to be able to answer and clarify for yourself. Is like, what am I really good at that's required for a job? And where do I get energy when I'm tasked with what is it? You could start today just self-reflecting and keeping track of those things. Awesome. I'm just trying to read some of your guys' comments in here. So I'm seeing Strengths Finder via we do constructive criticism. Oh, I love that. The other thing about feedback is that you want to make sure that you're really good at giving feedback. We actually have an online course about this called Critique Crash Course. And we specifically made sure to focus on not just how to receive feedback, but how to give feedback. I'm a fan of the compliment sandwich, which sort of sounds like what you guys are doing, which is you say something positive, then you give something that is maybe more critical, and then you end on a positive note. So yeah, that's my like easy way to remember all that. Casa Wilson said, this checks out. I work for a nonprofit that provides aptitude testing to measure strengths and weaknesses. Our research department did find that people are much more satisfied with their careers when they use their strengths. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to number 3. And don't forget, you guys, I put that webinar in there. That was an awesome webinar on it. So, strengths is if you want to be your own career coach or your business coach. The other thing I have found just as a business owner is that understand the strengths of your business, right? So under like what I talked about was understanding what are you good at that's required for your job. So if you're owning your own business, you could think about what is your business successful at that also makes money, right? So those are all good things to be thinking about. So the other thing, oh yeah, Kim, what is her name? Kim from Radical Candor. Is it Kim Scott? But she's coming back with her podcast too, Kayla. So Radical Candor, you guys, is also an awesome book. And it's about, now I want to look it up. Kim, I think it's Kim Radical. Yeah, Kim Scott. Okay, here is, I just found any link, but here's that. I'll put it in the show notes because Radical Candor was an awesome book. And if you want to be good at giving and receiving feedback, that's a good place to start too. Okay, number 3, let's get smart with your goals. So SMART is an acronym. And again, if you came to Dr. Sasha's past webinar, which was how to set goals during uncertainty, she actually talked about how the goals she's talking about are not SMART goals. So with hers, it was this big bodacious goal. And it's one goal that scares you and it's meant to take you from where you are now to where you want to go, right? That's different than a SMART goal. SMART goals are fantastic at work because they work the way work works. I know that was working a lot of sentences, but the point being is that setting and managing professional goals it often feels really overwhelming when you first start working on elevating your career. So you want to begin your goal setting process by thinking about the areas you would like to learn more about, spend energy on, or specifically improve. You want to spend some time auditing your interests, your concerns, and you want to sit down to set up some time to set up some SMART goals. I would also highly recommend that if you have a boss, that you run through you set these goals with your manager. So when I was interviewing someone from the book, she talked about how she was in the self-advocacy chapter, but we had a long conversation. She's now the CFO of a bank. And what she talked about is one of the things she always made sure she knew and kept when she was making her goals is she always knew what were her boss's top 3 priorities. So maybe she didn't always set SMART goals with her boss's input, but she always knew what are their top 3 priorities. So sometimes managers will literally work through this with you, and sometimes that's not their thing and they're not going to do it. And to ask them to do it would be strange. Only you know your company culture well enough to know yay or nay if you can do this. But if you can't, then what I would really recommend is go to your boss and say, hey, what are the top 3 priorities for this company, this department, this team, me, whatever, right? Like get clarity on what matters to them. And then you're going to set these goals. Maybe your goal is to increase clients, or maybe your goal is to, I'm trying to think about it like related to your email list or engagement or something with client, whatever. You guys get it. I'm trying to have a wide variety of these and I'm not improving very well. Once you have that idea, maybe you could go back to your boss and say, hey, based on what you're saying are the top 3 priorities here are the things I'm going to work on. And then what you can do in order to hit those specific, so let's say your goal is to increase engagement with your email newsletter, right? Now that's the big goal. That's the SMART goal. Now let's talk about how we can fill in the SMART. So what's the specific goals? The goals are detailed and definable. They're not broad ideas or concepts. So the specific goal is increase engagement by pick a percentage point. measurable. You can literally count these goals and determine growth. So this is important too. We don't want goals that are wishy-washy, right? We want goals that can be measurable and we know if you hit it or you didn't. Actionable. They are the immediate goals that you can make movement on. So going back to the example, increase email engagement by 5%. The measure is I'll know if I've hit that goal because I'll be able to see the percentage up. Actionable. Here are the actions I'm going to do to increase the email newsletter engagement by 5%. Relevant. Do they apply to your current life and help you make, they apply to your current life and will help you make changes. So this is where you're going to say, why is this goal relevant to my organization? You can't answer that if you don't know what is important to your boss or your organization, right? That's why it's really important for you to start with them and understand what are the most important things to them. What are the things that they move the needle for them? Because you want to align these things. That's very, very important. Here's that link, Elena. There you go. And then, so relevance is huge here. It's very important. And then timely. So what's your deadline? How are you going to track your goals and progress? So if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to hit 5% increase in email newsletter engagement rate in a month, okay, and you don't hit it in a month, then it's like, okay, let's reassess. Why didn't you hit that in a month? Maybe that was never a good amount of time. Like that timing was always off, right? So like, it's important that you are tracking your progress. And again, going back to the most important truth, that you are being objective about your goals and you're self-reflecting and you're checking in. That is the difference between letting careers just happen and being really proactive about your career, right? The difference of being in the backseat and letting it kind of the car go wherever it goes and being in the driver's seat is knowing what your goals are, knowing what your priorities are, and checking in with them. Okay, moving on to number 4. Progress, not perfection. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story. It's not long, I promise, and hopefully it's interesting. So I actually first learned about embracing progress, or this idea of like progress, not perfection, when I was on Weight Watchers. So my freshman year of college, I gained the freshman 30, not the freshman 15. If you can relate to any of that, let me know. It was probably my first time not, I didn't understand nutrition, and I had been a swimmer in high school and I wasn't exercising, yada, yada, yada. The point being, I gained a bunch of weight my freshman year of college. And when I went home that summer, I was really motivated to lose some weight. And when I say lose some weight, what I was really motivated was I didn't want to buy new jeans. I wanted to fit back into my pants. So somebody recommended to me that you should try Weight Watchers. And I was like, I had no idea. And by the way, guys, this was like back in the old days of Weight Watchers. Nothing was online. Like you had to have like a booklet and you had to like count up, and they had this like little measuring tool that would tell you how many points. But the general idea of Weight Watchers, you guys, is it's not about what you're eating. It's about your portion control. Like the idea is that you get to eat whatever you want, but you want to be taking into account like everything is worth a certain amount of points. So if they, if it's ice cream, it might be worth more points, whatever. You guys, this is not a Weight Watchers lesson, but the point being is that Weight Watchers is all about progress, right? You don't set the goal to lose 10 pounds in a week. You set a goal of losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. And then the whole idea is that you create this new healthy lifestyle. You know that saying, it's a lifestyle, not a diet. That's the same idea. And so with Weight Watchers, it took me all summer, but I eventually did lose the weight in a healthy way. But more importantly, I learned like good habits and healthy habits moving forward, right? It wasn't about losing weight quickly. It was about the consistency of it. And it's so interesting because that's exactly how it works with pretty much all other parts of our life. And there were these Harvard researchers who wrote a book and it's called The Progress Principle. And they found the same thing, that the progress principle proves how small wins can help create forward momentum. And that momentum is what helps ignite your engagement with your own work and your career. So just like you are going to lose 1 or 2 pounds a week, that's going to create this forward momentum for you to stick with it and overall get to whatever your goal is, right? It's the same idea with your career. We want to track those small wins. We don't want to think about, oh my gosh, what are the big things? We want to think, okay, maybe that's where I want to go, but here's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to just track these small wins, and all these small moves, these power moves are going to add up to the big pivotal moments in life, right? Those pivotal shifts. And when someone says, oh my gosh, overnight, it seems like your career just changed, you will know deep down, it wasn't overnight. It was small wins every day, working toward my goals. It was about progress, not perfection. The way I would encourage you to start with all of this is that I would start keeping a work journal. I would start saying to yourself every single day, I mean, you guys know I've been a big fan of work journals for a really long time, but one of the ways that you can implement this progress principle, or this progress, not perfection, is by actually tracking these things. So again, these are all ideas I kind of borrowed from Weight Watchers, where you are tracking every day and you're checking in with yourself is, okay, what is one lesson or lessons that you learned today? Did anyone compliment or comment on your workday? What did they say? What is one big thing that I accomplished today? And by big, again, we're tracking the small wins. So the big thing is actually maybe something small, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's something small, but the small things are what adds up, right? Did I do anything above and beyond my basic job description today, right? Think about that. You might even want to print out your job description, have it so that you're able to answer that, right? What is one way that I can go above and beyond tomorrow? So you want to be forward thinking. You have that growth mindset. And I really love that question because it only asks you about tomorrow. It doesn't ask you about the next 5 years. 5-year plans are, I have a love-hate relationship with them because I don't think it's bad to have be thinking about your future, obviously. But what happens with people being fixated on these 5-year plans or this 2-year plan or whatever is that it doesn't allow room for any flexibility and adaptability. And as we're learning right now, flexibility, adaptability, the ability to pivot, these are your best professional assets, right? Like those are the tools that you need more than anything. So that's something I just want you to remember, is that you want to be thinking about tomorrow, but you don't need to be thinking about the next 5 years. As they say, life happens while you're making plans. Okay, let's see. I'm just reading your guys' thing. So yes, this is absolutely going to be available for the replay, and you will be able to see this presentation in that replay. And let's see. Hoping a different example could be used next time. Pressure to diet during this. Yeah, you guys, I just want to, sorry, I really don't want you guys to think I'm pressuring anyone to diet. This was just sort of where I learned about this, this whole like tracking small things. I think up until that time in my life, it was always about the big end goal. So getting into the right college, doing this or doing that. And they were always like big, huge milestones with nothing in between. So please, I am by no means pressuring anyone. I thought it would be a fun, lighthearted story that happened 10 years ago. Okay, number 5 is commit to improve. So to become your own career coach, you really have to make this commitment. To really see success in your own career coaching, you have to actually make that commitment in writing with yourself. Maybe you want to tell a friend and you have that accountability. You want to commit to filling in your skills gaps. You want to commit to enhancing existing strengths. So once you know what your strengths are, how can you enhance them? And you want to commit to keeping yourself flexible so that you can pivot and adapt when needed, right? So I think one of the things that we are learning through this pandemic and this crisis is that it is absolutely imperative that we recognize the ability to stay flexible and nimble so that we can pivot and adapt because stuff happens. So definitely want you guys to keep that in mind, that as you are thinking about learning new skills and this commitment to improvement, even if you don't want to do it some days, I totally get that. But this is a commitment to yourself and keeping you able to be nimble, not because it's something you have to do. So to set yourself up for success, I would really recommend that you schedule it. I actually interviewed someone for the book and she had something called Career Development Fridays, which I loved. So she said, I think it was 2 to 3 p.m. every Friday. I always joke that 2 to 3 p.m. would not be my hour on a Friday to do this, but like maybe it's every Friday morning from like 9 to 10 a.m. You are going to schedule your career development in for 1 hour. So maybe you listen to a podcast, you read a book, you fill out a worksheet, you come to a webinar like this, anything, but like having that continuous tool to help you improve and fill your skills gaps is important. The other thing is visualize success and the challenges that are going to go with it, right? So you know, when you are visualizing that, again, going back to what Dr. Sasha said, when you are visualizing your reaching your big goal, you want to be optimistic, but you also want to be pessimistic. Those are the challenges. Setting yourself up for success, know your options. You know, when you hit a challenge, or let's say your challenge is that you want to get that promotion, what are the challenges that you're going to hit along the way? And what are your options to overcome those challenges or manage those challenges, etc.? Also, I would recommend, I already mentioned this, but share with a friend, find an accountability partner that maybe can help check in with you. You don't have to pay a career coach or a business coach to do that. This is a way for you to become your own career coach. And yes, it's always going to, one of the conveniences that you don't get is that you actually will have to be checking in with yourself. But one of the great things you could do is have a friend. When I was first starting Career Contessa, I did this. I had a friend who was also starting her own business, and every other Friday we would check in with each other. It was incredible. And I really do credit that for those early years of kind of sticking with it. And then lastly, you really want to celebrate your milestones. So those small wins, you know, don't forget to celebrate them. And don't just kind of. So I read about this thing the other day. It's called the success hangover. And it's about how we focus so much on, and the person who shared it, they had just put this on this big online summit. And she was saying that like the day after kind of reaching this big milestone, there's sort of this success hangover because most of us are so focused on getting to the finish line that we never enjoy the process of the development piece of it. And so one of the ways that you can, I think, get over that or not, have a success hangover is by celebrating the milestones along the way. And that's really, really important. And I would even work those into the schedule of whatever big goal or life event that you are, working toward. Number 6, stop the comparison game. You can break the myth of comparison by focusing on what you have and by focusing on what you have and creating habits that help you break this pattern of comparison. It is so important that we stop comparing our lives to somebody else. And we all know that social media has made it incredibly helpful to not just compare ourselves to, the Joneses next door, but the digital Joneses all over the world. So it is so incredibly not helpful to your career development and your personal development to be comparing yourself to others. A change in perspective is needed, but so is self-compassion, right? We had an awesome webinar with Lisa Abramson, and she started it by saying, by having this self-compassion meditation. It was like 1 or 2 minutes. And all she did was have us put our hand, I think it was our hand over our heart, close our eyes. And we talked about today is a new day. Today is really challenging. Again, being like really self-compassionate to ourselves and saying like, you're doing your best. Like that is needed for your change of perspective, but so is having a focus on what is going well. We had an article on Career Contessa about someone who practiced and wrote about gratitude every single day for forget how many days and how much it changed her perspective. It works, you guys. You hear this a lot because it works. So recognize your triggers and label them. So what is it that you're doing when you start to feel this like anxious comparison, right? So recognize your triggers and then label them. Keep a gratitude jar. So one of the things you could do is at your home, just keep a random jar or a bowl on the dining room table. And as you pass it, keep like a little Post-its and a pen there, write down something you're grateful for today. And then at the end of the week, take them all out and read them. Another thing is, of course, set limits for all of your social media apps each day and unfollow people who do not help you feel good about yourself. You also want to use comparison as a motivation to improve. So I'm going to link to this amazing podcast episode we did with Christine Hassler. And she talked about how, the reason why jealousy and envy and comparison are not always terrible is because there is a piece of you that that comparison or that self-critic is trying to coach or is trying to motivate you to do better, right? But the problem is that inner critic, we need to change it from being an inner critic to an inner coach. So it needs to be about how, okay, maybe I'm jealous of what that person has. Why am I jealous? Is it because I have been wanting that, but I've been too afraid to take those steps? So now the focus should be about, okay, how am I going to take those steps? So it's not always a terrible thing, but if it is terrible if it's not used in a constructive way. So listen to that podcast episode. It's awesome as well. And also what you want to do is really change your inner critic from an inner critic to an inner coach. And then the last thing is volunteer your time to a community organization. This is really, really interesting to me how research has like proven time and time again that one of the things that you can do to change your perspective and to feel gratitude is to give back. And there are so many people who need it right now and want it right now. If you are a career coach right now, is there a way that you could give back to people who are really struggling? Obviously, this is something I think a lot about at Career Contessa too. Okay, so sorry, moving along because I know we've got more to get to. Okay, so here's why you guys showed up today. You showed up today because you want to be in the driver's seat of your career, and it's completely possible. You showed up today because you're ready for a reboot in your career and life. I saw that from the poll. A lot of you said that you actually showed up for personal development, not just because you want to advance in your career, you want to find a new job. You showed up today because you want to be fulfilled at work, right? That means being able to identify your strengths and create goals around them and bring them into your work day to day. You showed up today because you want to ditch the ambition trap that you've fallen into. That ambition trap is you work really hard. This isn't about, your own ambition and your ability to hustle and work hard. This is about feeling like you've lost direction. This is about feeling like no matter how many of the right boxes you check, you're not fulfilled. You showed up today because you are ready to make a power move. So let's talk about what a power move is, because I know that you've maybe heard of it before, but this is kind of my own definition now. So power moves are the decisions or actions or behaviors. So think these could be habits, rituals, to-do lists, whatever you want to call them. But they are the moves that make it possible to have a fulfilling career on your terms. So power moves are not repetitive behavior expecting different results. Power moves are not behavior guided by other people's expectations. Power moves are not agreeing to do things that don't align with your personal values. And power moves are not shortcuts to performing the necessary steps, right? Power moves are about being intentional. They're not about just checking the box. So right now you've got two options. You can continue letting your career just happen and hope for the best, right? That's kind of this desperate luck scenario where you hope it all works out and you're not going to really fight it. Or you can be in the driver's seat of your career and make a power move today. And this is what I call the difference between desperate luck and calculated success. There is absolutely no reason why people who kind of let their careers just happen won't be successful. I know that we wish that like maybe that would be happening. Like, hey, if you don't do that, no, there's no like hard and fast rule about that. But what I can tell you is that people who are successful and fulfilled in life are people who are in the driver's seat. They're really intentional about these moves that they make in their career. So remember that you don't have to feel lost or stuck in your career. Maybe you're going to have moments of that, but it doesn't have to be this overall looming cloud of, that follows you wherever you go. Remember that you can find joy in the process of career development versus only focusing on the destination. If any of you have ever just felt like you're on this treadmill of like more and more and more and more and more, you don't have to continue like that. That's a choice. You can find ways and create habits and routines and rituals and make power moves that help you find joy and feel the joy of the process and not just the reaching that destination. And remember that you are your best career coach and the advocate for your success. You are the best person. Yes, there are people who can support you, and certainly relationships are a big piece of this, but at the end of the day, no one cares about your career the way you do because it's you. And that is not to take away from other things and other people, but I'm just saying that is really, really, really important to remember that you are your best career coach and advocate for your success. So Please don't forget that. So I want to just talk a little bit about power moves, and then I'm going to get into your guys' questions. So the book is called Power Moves: How Women Can Pivot, Reboot, and Build a Career of Purpose. If you haven't pre-ordered yet, I'll just tell you a little bit about what's in the book, and the call to action to go to the Power Moves book website is below. And then I'll also put it right here in the chat section so you guys can learn more about it if you're interested. But this is what you're going to learn in the book is you guys, I spent over 2 years working on this. So it literally has thousands of insights, stories, and experiences. And you will learn the secret to building this purposeful career, which is the power moves approach. And I actually have like a diagram and everything. So don't worry, I have some visuals in there as well. You're going to learn the process for developing an approach so you can start actively guiding the direction of your career, one that provides fulfillment, with real life examples from successful women in a variety of industries and diverse backgrounds. I included lots of takeaways from research from also and interviews from readers of Career Contessa as well. You're going to learn how to identify notorious career traps through a foundational toolkit organized into 4 critical sections called self-care, relationships, career, and money. And, with clarity, relatability, and directiveness, the power moves approach is, I just said this, is the difference between desperate luck and calculated success. Power Moves is a much needed handbook filled with practical information, advice, and essential tools. We even included helpful graphics and worksheets to guide women toward decisive, bold steps without self-doubt and fear tagging along. And I should say tagging along on a consistent basis. So imagine if your behavior was rooted in 100% your own personal values. Imagine if you found joy in the actual process of developing your own career. Imagine if you had the foundational tools to build a successful career suited for you and only you, right? It is personalized to you. Imagine if you are inspired to develop your own power moves approach so you can reboot your career. And imagine if you always feel in control of your career, even as you navigate pivots and face unknowns. That all sounds really good, right? So if you're thinking like, hey, I want those things, then I highly encourage you to pre-order Power Moves. If you pre-order between now and when the book is actually released on May 19th, you also get a ton of incredible pre-order perks or resources. So you get the 30-day or the Power Moves playbook, a 30-day interactive guide. So anybody who's been thinking about the work journal, I know there were some questions about that. I would highly encourage you to pre-order the book if you're already thinking about it, because you get the Power Moves playbook, which has got some work journal vibes to it. And then the other stuff that you get as part of your companion resources when you pre-order are bonus materials like worksheets. There's a book club guide, so you can start that. Talk about like finding accountability partners. Start a book club using a career book. Yeah. You also get some special discounts to some of my other favorite brands. You also will get Power Moves edible PDF worksheets. So there's a lot of worksheets in the book. And if you pre-order, you'll get those worksheets as the PDF. So you can do them again and again and again. This is the really special kicker probably for a lot of people is you get a 50% off coupon code to use on any single Career Contessa course. So you guys, we never offer discounts on our courses. You know that. Like one time a year we do a sale. So, and it's never for 50%. So you get 50% off any one single Career Contessa course when you pre-order the book. The other thing that you get is early access to the audio file of the introduction in chapter 1 before it's released on May 19th. So Katie McWilliams, did you listen to the audio? Because you get that right away. So there you go. And then of course you get to be the first to read Power Moves. They should be, if you order it, they should come to you on May 19th. I've heard that some of them are coming May 20th and 21st because of everything that's happening in the world. But you will be getting your book pretty soon. So I would highly encourage you guys to check this out because you get all of these pre-order perks for free when you pre-order the book, and it's really easy to do them. So after you pre-order the book here, I think I have an example. So once you go to powermovesbook.com, you order from one of the retailers, they will give you an order number. So here's an example. And then what you do is you go back to the website, powermovesbook.com, and up on one of the tabs, it says book perks. You type in your name, your email, the vendor, and then you put your order number there. That's how we verify that you actually purchased it. And then your pre-order perks, everything I just mentioned, are emailed to you right away. Maybe in like 10 minutes later, but pretty much right away. So that's really important in terms of when you pre-order. getting those actual perks. So don't forget that. Here's some nice things people said. We'll skip this just because you guys can read it later, but also I want to make sure we have time for questions. And then, just more information about Power Moves. So don't forget that when you pre-order between now and May 19th, you get all of those pre-order perks that are valued at over $300 for free. And I think that this is, while it wasn't the way I planned to release a book through a global pandemic, I think there's never been a better time for a career guide to come out that can help you pivot, reboot, and build your career a purpose. So I'm going to leave that up and change the screen to myself so I can answer some of your questions. Okay, awesome. Do you have to pre-order the book on the website to get these materials? Hayden, no, you don't have to. You just have to have a pre-order number, like an order number. So you don't have to do it through the book website. You can, and also if you have a local bookstore, you can ask them if they carry the book and just get the order number. So that's the most important thing. Thank you guys. So many of you are saying that you already pre-ordered. It means so much to me. It's also going to look so beautiful on your bookshelf. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I will, but I didn't write a book just so it would do that. Well, you still have access to the PDFs if you order an audiobook. Yep. So if you order all you need is an order number. So we just want the proof of purchase, and it can be from one of the retailers on there. It will be from Audible, a local bookstore, anything. And also if you have a company that you think would buy the books for you, you can email us at info@careercontessa.com. Maybe they'll put in a bulk order. So you might even be able to get these things bulk ordered for you from your company, because it's not a job search book. Yes. So the pre-order link, you guys, it's really a pre-order website. So you have everything in one place. It's powermovesbook.com. I already shared this. It says, okay, link. And please, I'm counting on you guys to help share the message. It's the #1 new release on Amazon for job search right now. I think it was number 30 for business books. So I'm really incredibly grateful to those of you who are pre-ordering and just this community in general, because none of this is possible without you. And I hope it lives up to your expectations of what a career guide should be. I also think it's going to be one of those books where you go to it time and time again. This was, 7+ years of Career Contessa plus 2 years of writing. It's full of all the best advice that's come our way. Okay, I want to leave time for answering questions, and don't worry, I will. I'll stay on longer to make sure we get to answer them. So, and definitely let me know if you've got questions. Okay, so how does one go? Let me record it. How does one go about a career change? So here was my best advice if you're thinking about making a career transition. First, you kind of have to know what is the career change that you want to make. We also have an online course about how to make a career transition. We cover this a lot. So if you want more step-by-step details, we cover it there. But when I was looking to make a career change from being an admin assistant to a recruiter, the only thing that really, because I was applying for tons of jobs, but the only time I actually got traction was when I really knew what I was applying for and why. So that random recruiting assignment actually introduced me to the world of recruiting. And from there, I started having informational interviews with real recruiters to learn more about, what is recruiting, what type of careers are available if you want to be a recruiter, because it's not just recruiting, right? There's different industries, different types of recruiters, et cetera. So if you want to make a career change, you need to identify what it is that you want to do. And then I would encourage you to learn everything you can about that job by having informational interviews, researching online. I would encourage you to fill any skills gaps that you have. And then once you have a really a good idea of what you want to do, you've learned a lot about it, then I'm going to encourage you to target companies and not just job titles on where you can get your foot in the door to do that job. So, but for a more in-depth answer, you can Google career transition, Career Contessa, or career change, Career Contessa, and there's lots of articles. And also we have our online course on career transitions. So don't forget, we have a lot of step-by-step stuff. Okay, Deborah said that finding your unique value conundrum and how to put it into the world no matter what stage of one's career life. Yes, it is a big conundrum for sure. I think that's why it's really important that you are able to articulate your unique value or your skill set as it relates or as it matters to the workplace, right? So one of the great things is to understand what are the values, or what is your boss value, right? So going to your boss and being like, what are the top 3 things that are really important or really top of mind for the company right now? So can you find how to articulate your skill set and your value as it relates to what they value? That is important. And I think that, of course, no matter what stage of your career, your life, it's going to matter that you're able to connect the dots between those 2 things. Okay, Peyton says, does it make a candidate look less desirable if they spent time working an unrelated job, cashier, to make ends meet during COVID and had a gap in career-worthy roles? Should I share that on LinkedIn, resumes, or interviews? Peyton, I think this is a great question. Absolutely no. What I would do is that I would organize your resume so that it says relevant experience up at top and put your stuff. And then I would have additional experience. And that's where I would say cashier. And I would add a 1-line description that says, like, due to COVID, like, laid off due to COVID-19, took this job as a bridge job or a bridge career or, transitional job. And you can describe it like that so that they know that you took this because it was something you had to do. And I think in fact, I think employers are going to applaud you for that. I think that many employers, when they start to open up and interview people again, their number one question is going to start to be like, what were you doing with your time? What were you doing? And so to hear that you took a bridge job to bridge you from where you were to where you want to go, I think that's incredible. I think that the skills that you learn as a cashier, if you can make them transferable to what you want to do next, even better. If you can't, in any way, shape, or form, then just make sure that you are carving out some time, maybe 1 hour a week, to dedicate to career development as it relates to where you want to go next or what you want to do next, so that you're not kind of losing touch with that, for example. Okay, Charlotte says, what are some things we can do during quarantine that can add to our resumes to really stand out once this is all over? Oh, sorry. Charlotte said, what are some things we can do during quarantine that can add to our resumes to really stand out once this is all over and the job search gets back and running? So this is something I've been saying kind of, I guess, fairly often. Hopefully you guys aren't sick of hearing this, but I think when things quote unquote open up again, it's going to be really important that you're able to show, not just tell future employers how amazing you are. So, it used to be that the power, quote unquote, power of employment was in the employees or the candidates side, but now it's kind of more with the employer because there are less job openings and more job candidates. So to stand out, you are going to have to be really, really strong in being able to show them right away and quickly that you are worth an interview, right? So the goal of the resume is to get you the interview. The goal of the interview is to get you the in-person interview or, the bigger interview. And the goal of that is to get the offer. So each one is a stepping stone. So what I would encourage you to do right now is, and remember, they're going to ask you, what did you do? How did you spend your time? So what are some things that you can be doing? There are tons of things that you can be doing for free. We had an article on this on Career Contessa, 6 free ways that you can advance your career during the coronavirus. Coming to webinars like this, filling your skills gap. So if there's a software program that you've been needing to learn for a while, why haven't you learned it? Maybe you haven't had the time. So can you learn that? Can you set up a portfolio website that showcases examples of your work? Because that would be really impressive. I have a friend who's interviewing for a job, I think today, and they didn't ask her to make a presentation, but she has a Skype interview with them. And so she's created a whole little mini presentation to visually showcase her work. So, it's the person who's going to go above and beyond and the people who are able to show, not just tell how amazing they are. S says, how do you know when to change careers? I mean, this is incredibly interpersonal, conversation with yourself, I feel like, but the time that you change careers are probably when you've reached some sort of pivot in your life, like your job no longer serves where your stage of life is. Maybe you are stagnant in your career, you're no longer challenged with it. Maybe you are, if you're just looking for an overall change, job wise, but you love your company, maybe you can think about, is there a way to change departments or job functions versus overall company? So I think it's time to change careers when you feel the need to say, you know what? I'm no longer challenged. I'm not excited about what I'm working on anymore. And you want to make sure that this is not just sort of one of those like gut reactions. So that's why I think keeping a work journal for a while is actually really important, because you want to be able to self-reflect about what is it in your current job that you like? What is it in your current job that you don't like? And then you need to kind of take a step back and be like, the things that I don't like, can they be fixed? Are they because of a situation, or are these things always here? And so being able to know and answer those things requires you to self-reflect, and it requires you to kind of track and understand what feeds you, what doesn't feed you in your current role, and then kind of evaluate the facts. And the facts is a really important comment there, because you want to be able to look at this without a ton of emotion getting in the way. I think there are plenty of times where we have a bad day at work and we're like, oh, it's time to change your careers, or I'm so bored. But what I have learned is that you take yourself wherever you go, right? And so whatever issues you might be having in your current job, that doesn't mean that you won't have them in your next job. So we need to really identify what is it that is working and not working for you. And then that can kind of help you understand, like, okay, is it time to change careers, or is it that this isn't working because of this reason? There's some stuff I can be trying to do differently within my current role. So good question though. Okay, Shree says, what is the best way to address concerns for a career gap? I was working, but in mostly temporary or short-term roles to get by. So we also have an amazing podcast episode on that I will drop in here. And the reason why I'm dropping that in here is because the recruiter that I interviewed, this was pre-COVID, obviously, we were talking about that. And I asked her specifically, like, what happens if you have a lot of gaps? And maybe you won't be shocked by this, but one of the things she really hates is when people do the thing where they just like tell you the year that they work somewhere. So like 2020, worked, or so basically, sorry, I'm trying to like find this while I'm talking to you. So one of the things she said she hates is when she doesn't feel like people are really truthful about the exact dates. So one of the best things you can do is listen to this podcast episode, of course, but then also make sure that you are putting the exact dates in there. And then what I'm a big fan of, if you've had temporary jobs, is that one line overview description underneath the job title where it explains, temporarily worked in XYZ role, or did this for a short amount of time, for example. So I feel like that is just really important, because I feel like with career gaps, what you don't want is the recruiter to feel like you're lying to them, or that you're somehow trying to hide something. So, and then the other thing you could do is, if you want for your resume, you can make your resume more based, instead of it being based off of like job titles, you could say, project management related experience, and you could make it more of a functional resume than a chronological resume. So a quick Google search, or even taking the resume quiz that we have under downloads, will help you know which type of resume format you should make. Okay, how do you quantify on your resume? Good question, S. So, I mean, you quantify wherever you can. I mean, as much as you can quantify, it's really, really important that you do that, because again, this is about show, don't just tell. And the difference between saying I was an admin assistant and I answered the phone versus I was an admin assistant and I answered, 100 plus phone calls a day to mitigate concerns quickly is night and day, right? So you're going to want to quantify on your resume as much as possible by adding any details you can. What tools or software were you using? What were the results? How many of something? So if you managed the interns, how many interns did you manage, for example? So remember that you can quantify probably a lot more than you think. So what I would recommend is start by writing things out the way you want to write them out, and then go back and see if you can add specifics. Again, how did you do something? Why did you do something? What were the tools that you used to do it? How many people were involved in the process? Those are all good ways to help you quantify. Okay, what are some ways to manage your job search during COVID-19? So one of the best ways that you can manage your job search is to Again, have a very clear idea of where you want to go and what you want to apply to. My top advice usually on this is to focus on the targeting companies and not necessarily targeting specific job titles, or at least start thinking about your job search related to finding out what companies would be a really good fit for you. Again, this is something we talk a lot about in the book, is how to find target companies. So the other thing you want to do with your job search right now is spend the time targeting those companies, set up those informational interviews, learn everything you can about the companies. And I would say it's almost like having the approach of you're going to start with the company and work your way back into a job. Okay, S says, what are some of the biggest challenges facing job seekers in today's job market? How do those challenges change over time? I mean, some of the biggest challenges facing job seekers today are the fact that there are less roles available than there are job seekers. So in order to face those challenges, you are going to have to, again, show, don't just tell. You are going to have to network and get really creative with the job search. I've always said this, but I think it's even more true now, that if you just apply for jobs online and you don't actually find a real person to send your resume to, then you have not finished applying online. So the job seekers today is everything just got a little bit harder and a lot more competitive. So you're going to have to do everything you can to stand out. Networking is going to be a huge, huge, huge piece of that. So you can start building your network now by having informational interviews with people at your target companies and building relationships with people before there's a job opening, before you're asking them for a favor. And then once you do apply for a job, make sure that you are tailoring your resume, all your application materials, sending additional materials, whether they're needed or not. I also think that I wouldn't be shocked if employers have, projects and assignments they give to people even more now, just to make sure that they're getting the hiring right, because they just don't have the time to take chances, and maybe financially they don't have the time to potentially have someone who can't perform right away. So you're going to have to really own your storyline and be able to sell them on that. Okay, Renee said, this is the last question, then we'll call it a day, is how can one craft a comprehensive career story to pitch themselves to a prospective employer and make a career pivot into a different industry? That is a loaded question. So we actually have a free resource on Career Contessa. It's how to master your personal pitch. And we also have a online course called Becoming Pitch Perfect. Both of those resources are all about crafting a comprehensive career story. I think the most important thing to remember is that you do not want your identity between your, personal pitch to your resume, to your LinkedIn, to your portfolio site to be all be telling different stories. It doesn't mean that it has to be like Lauren is a tech recruiter. That is hyper specific. If that's your dream and you know that, then you can be hyper specific. Maybe it's that Lauren is a creative problem solver, right? Like you can pick themes instead of specifics also for your overall comprehensive career story. And then you want all of your other materials to basically be supporting, to be companions to your overall theme. So I think that I also had an article where I wrote how to make a personal pitch when you're transitioning careers. So if you just Google career transition elevator pitch, Career Contessa, which I can too, you can also see, and I remember I put an example in there for that elevator pitch. But what I would say is like, whatever you start with as your elevator pitch, you can kind of use that as this like for companies, that's almost like your mission statement. And then from there, you're getting more specific with each network or vertical or medium that you're putting your stuff, your information on. So I'm just going to find you this if I can. Okay, here it is. So I'll put this in the live chat. Let's see. And there's more tools like this on Career Contessa too. Let me put it in your comment as well. I do think telling a really good story is going to be really important to employers as well. I know for me, when I've heard really good stories, they're not always like as I think as specific as you guys are thinking. Sometimes it's, maybe people are picking overall industries or they're picking overall functions, growth, development, relationship building, career development. So and also this helps a lot if you know what pivot you want to make. So if you know that you want to pivot to a certain employer and you know their industry, that's going to help you almost like work as like guidelines to help you with all of the stuff we're talking about. So check those out. Also check out our Becoming Pitch Perfect course, Master Your Personal Pitch, which is under downloads. All amazing tools for you. We have a ton of tools on career transitions and see those examples. But like I said, the most important thing is that they're all telling somewhat of a cohesive story. There's this great book called Content Inc. that I really like. And he kind of talks a little bit about this. And now that's for a business, obviously, but I think a lot of the same stuff about how brands need to tell a story and how they can use content, which is for you would be like social media, LinkedIn, resume, to align with their overall mission statement, might be also really helpful to just look for some books that maybe they're meant for businesses, but you could definitely apply it to your personal situation. Thank you so much, you guys, for showing up to today's webinar and spending your Wednesday with me, how to become your own career coach. I hope you found this helpful. Hopefully you liked the workshop style. Definitely please pre-order Power Moves if you think that that's something that's up your alley, because you get all those amazing pre-order perks if you do it between now and the 19th. There are I know you guys have been so lively in the chat. I haven't had a chance to keep up with it nearly as much as I usually do, but you definitely have some amazing tools and resources that you guys have been sharing with each other for all the continuous education development as well. So thank you again. And I hope to see you guys on our next, it's not really a webinar, it's more like a party. You guys will hear about it soon, but definitely stay on the Career Contessa newsletter, keep opening those, and you'll be the first to find out about it. But thank you guys. Have an amazing Wednesday.